Hey everybody, Josh RV Nerd with Bish's RV with another of these monthly-ish RV industry updates. And if I had to oversimplify a theme for this month's industry update, it would be that it's going to get worse before it gets better. But the thing is, the industry's distress might be to your benefit. We're going to kind of break that down a little bit as we go. We're going to look at all kinds of charts and graphs and fun things on screen, showing us where the industry's at right now, as well as where we're projecting things to be going, with information from a couple different sources to kind of help you get as much data as you can in as short amount of a time as you can to really, be able to form your own opinions and decide if or what you're going to do with your potential RVing lifestyle. I've also got some update and some news on that California generator ban. It's not specific to California, but that's what a lot of people refer to it as, so that's the name that we're going with here. Some manufacturing news and all kinds of bunch different little things, including some interesting new solar tech that I stumbled into. Not a whole lot of information out yet, but a bunch of fun stuff coming, so stay tuned. And as we go, if you appreciate this information, if you like how, we're about to share with you some of our literal insight data insights, literally pulling the curtain back, and not just to share with you, but literally any of our direct competitors are going to be able to see this stuff off this video. If you appreciate how we're doing that for your benefit, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as we go, if there's anything you'd like to comment or add, please do so, and I'll do my best to try to get to all of them. And let's get going. So first, let's establish by looking at where we were versus where we are to help us understand where we're going. What I mean by all this is if you take a look here at what is being built new for manufacturers now versus last year, the charts and the graphs are really like, whoa, something's way off here. If you notice, this was the time last year, about July of last year, is when that big trend of massive overproduction by manufacturers really started to taper off, because it was the point where dealerships were finally starting to get some stuff back in stock, and the industry just wasn't necessarily like building full tilt like they were, although they were still building above normal historic highs. Well, obviously they're not building full tilt now, but production does appear to be kind of normalizing and equalizing through the year. You notice how if you follow the trend on that bar graph, it's far less spiky and severe right now than it was before. But here's the thing. If we look at actual numbers, it really, I think, tells the tale, because the bar graphs, you tend to take them individually. If you look at adding up all those bar graphs, what it basically tells the story of is that the industry is building about 50% fewer RVs this year versus last year. Now that is expected, if you look at the blue bars off that previous chart, it is expected to kind of continue to creep up a little bit. A lot of the dealership offloading of a lot of inventory is getting to the point that they can start to roll a more consistent ordering stock of things. And like just today, I think I saw 7-8 new RVs just rolling here to my hometown store just today, and I haven't seen that many in one time since last year. It's been a while. So dealerships are starting to open up the gates as they've sold off some of their old stuff. A lot of those markdown opportunities have picked off. They're still, this is what I was saying, where the dealership may have distressed inventory, aged inventory still laying around. There's still some really good, in some cases, literally below dealership invoice, literally below our cost opportunities for you out there as consumers, but those are starting to go away and get replaced by, new things effectively. But at the end of the day, what is literally, essentially happening is the industry is building 50% less now than before. Now, as a result, this has some manufacturers, some brands have extra facilities that are designed to open up when times are good and then close them down when times are not. A lot of those are closed down. There's also, I would say that through Elkhart County, where the majority of RVs are made, most factories, not all, but most are working 2 to 3 days per week. There's very few brands who are actually still doing 5-day-a-week production, and those that are, they're definitely going at a very relaxed pace currently. Now, as far as where we're going, using that information and projecting forward, what I'm about to show you is literal, our own number nerd crunchers in-house at Bish's RV. I was given the blessing to basically share our inside trade information on this, so I hope you kind of appreciate it. So starting here with one of these pretty little number bar charts, at a glance, this line chart's a little tricky to read. There's a couple things I want you to focus in on. The gray line is the full year forecast we made like at the beginning of the year coming into the year. The yellow line is what we're forecasting like live right now with, you know, current data and adjustments, and then the gold line is what things have actually panned out to be like in terms of shipments versus sales and things like that. If you notice, we've been projecting in-house and predicting pretty darn close to what has actually been happening here. Not 100%, but using this data, we're expecting there to be about around 317,000 shipments by the end of the year. Now that's a little bit higher than I thought they were going to be. And you know, taking a look at like again the breakdown on the, I'll call it the number chart instead of the line chart here, it really tells again a different tale. But what we're actually estimating, forecasting, and predicting is not a hard 50% less sales versus last year. There's certainly a lot less units being built versus last year, but I've said this before, what's built and what's sold are not the same thing, but I've never had the ability to publish good data, and the big brass from Bishop said, get Josh that those charts and that information, let him publish it. And even though other dealerships are going to see it, we don't care. We want to continue that pursuit of relentless transparency for our customers and just help give you all the information you possibly can, like information overload basically. And I was really, really like, wow, like I never expected them to do something like that. The overall through the year, what it means is that in terms of RVs sold this year, there will be about 89,000 less RVs sold, despite there being about 50% fewer RVs built. Now there's some factors relating into that. Things like interest rates have climbed up. That affects dealerships as well as customers because, you know, when we have a lot of stock sitting around for a while, we pay interest and curtailments on that. So if interest rates go up, we need to dwindle our inventory down. That is one of several factors that has caused almost a little bit of a delay in ordering a lot of 2023 stuff until we got off of a bunch of existing inventory. And that's not just Bishop's, that's just dealerships as a whole. That's just, well, if you're gonna manage your business, that's the way that you have to manage your business. And we're getting to a point now where we can keep that rolling stock of inventory. So as 4 units sell off, we can replace it with 4 new ones and start getting things fresh, which I'm excited to see because this is happening right about the time we're coming into a model year change. Now the thing is, the way that we've been projecting and graphing data internally at Bishop's is actually a little more optimistic than I necessarily expected this year. Maybe I'm just a little bit too much of a Debbie Downer on that. By the way, apologies to anybody named Debbie that everybody thinks your name's a Downer. Well, how about, I don't know, Daryl Downer? Okay, we'll go with that. I'm a Daryl Downer. But I wanted to bounce this information off another source, so I went out and I found some third-party information, and I want to take a look at a second set of predictions and forecasts here through someone else's eyes. So I dug up some information from RVIA, the RV Industry Association, the overarching governing body of the RV industry, and they put together a lot of the stuff to help their RV dealers try to be able to plan and forecast. And they're being maybe a little bit more in line with what I was thinking, a little bit more pessimistic about the year. Now, one thing I do want to back up and state, the information that we had there off of our charts, like I said, it's not 100% accurate. You know, none of your forecasts ever are, but the things that we have forecasted in our crystal ball have been 94% accurate, so our data's been pretty good. Our little people interpreting that have done a pretty good job. But take a look at this. So the first chart we're looking at, these are rolling 12-month shipments. So each data point is a total of that month and the previous 12 months worth of RV shipments. And looking at data like this over a period of time can kind of help weed out some of those more outlier data points and kind of equate things a little bit and identify some trends. And it becomes very obvious if you look at the amount of shipments built during the COVID pandemic fueled era, and then looking at things now, that there's been, I think it's reasonable to describe it as a nosedive in the amount of RV shipments made. But when you move from the blue bars to the gold bars, that is the future trend predictions there, and it does there are some projections and predictions out there that coming into the 2024 calendar year, not model year, not RV model year, but calendar year, that you will actually see a little bit of a bit of a rebound or a reset or healing or whatever you want to call it, estimated through the sales and shipments in the industry, which is, you know, from somebody in my perspective, naturally very exciting to see. But that's the thing, is like, my perspective as a dealership representative, even though I'm trying to do the best I can to educate you here, at the end of the day, I'm a dealership representative. I've never hidden or shied away from that fact. The things that are necessarily beneficial for us and my organization are not always necessarily beneficial for you as consumers. And that's why we put this information out there. Now, looking at this data in a little bit different way, here's a growth chart kind of showing the growth rates or decay rates of RV shipments, and it's kind of mirroring that previous chart that we saw there, where once again, right now, yeah, there's not growth and increase in the number of RVs being built and shipped and produced out there, but it does look like that is going to, like, things are going to almost kind of hit that homeostasis balance point by the end of this calendar year, and maybe coming into the beginning of next year we may actually see a little bit of growth back into the industry. But RVIA is projecting about 297,000 RVs being built this year, where we were projecting about 317. So you figure there's about a 20,000 RV you know, swing mix in there, which in the scheme of things may not sound like a lot, but I mean, you know, that's like 6, 7, 8% variance in there. That's, you know, not an insignificant number. But I wanted to try to just give you all the data I could. Either way, what you're looking at here is you're looking at a significant decline, especially in production versus last year. And we're all kind of thinking that by the end of this year, things will sort of flatten out and we'll see a little bit of an upturn coming into the next calendar year. But we'll get the crystal ball out, and I'll put on my Nerdstradamus hat at the time, and we'll see what we can get there, Paul. And if you're one of them 4 non-blondes looking at this chart, you might be asking yourself, what's going on? Well, what's happening here is, though, if you look at things economically, overall, consumer financial factors are actually still really, really strong. It's just that the base essentials, things like housing, food, fuel, those 3 especially, are more essential items, and those items are eating up more and more of today's consumers' incomes than they were a couple years ago. And as a result, there's less room in there for discretionary income for things like RVs, boats, recreational activities like that. So there's fewer people wanting to buy things right now because there's a little less money go around. Like, it all makes sense. That all adds up right there. We kind of have gone through a phase of some other things like having overproduced and overbuilt RVs for a while, which is why there's like a 50% fewer RVs being built, but only about 20% fewer RVs being sold because there were already so many built. It's a case of we're paying the piper after having robbed Peter to pay Paul. But again, if you remember, the gold areas in those prediction charts, there's a little bit of an upswing. So, you know, is there any sign of change for those trends, and what would be fueling that? Well, naturally, there's a lot of factors that all kind of come together to determine a lot of these things, but one of the major ones that has been affecting all kinds of stuff. I even mentioned how it's affected how dealerships, you know, stock their inventory, and certainly how a consumer buys their inventory, interest rates. Consumer buys their inventory, I guess that is technically correct. You know what I meant. Anyway, interest rates have been creeping up to help curb some inflationary factors, and that trend has been happening for, you know, a couple years here. Now, compared to the history of interest rates, I'm an idiot. I don't even know why you guys watch this stuff. I'm so stupid. If you compare current rates to the history of interest rates, we're actually still fairly moderate, on the light side of moderate at that. But we all got very, very accustomed to far lower interest rates for an extended period of time, like a virtually unprecedented extended period of time. And it sucks giving that up. It sucks for you, it sucks for us, it sucks for everybody. Well, it kind of looks like moving into the end of the year, the Feds may, I'm not the leading economist. Don't make big moves based on this bald idiot nerd, but there are indicators that the Feds may be changing their stance a little bit to a little bit more of a holding pattern on interest rates, then coming into next year, maybe potentially offering a little bit of relief, which I think is a major influencing factor on why we're seeing some of that predicted uptick in trend. But I'd be kind of curious to ask you folks, because a lot of you out there have some really good insights, a lot of different backgrounds and knowledge. What do you think we're going to see for the remainder of the year, and where do you think we're going to go heading into 24, up or down, and why? And I wanted to give you that information in the new RV market, whether you have an RV now and you're thinking of upgrading or trading or just getting out of it, or if you're making plans to get into the RV business. That's, some handy info. But not everybody's all about that new RV life. What about the used market? To kind of gain some insights on that, I've been tracking, for a while now, monthly wholesale auction volumes, because that all comes through like third-party wholesale auctions. It's very independent data. It's not poisoned by anything. It's very reliable in that way. Still requires interpretation. So first of all, taking a look at the towable stuff, I gotta tell you, there's some goofy data here. Anyway, take a look at this chart. This is, like 5 years of like rolling fifth wheel and trailer data. This past month, the average price of the used wholesale auction trailer and fifth wheel was just over $21,000. Almost exactly the same as the month before. Almost exactly the same as the same time last year. Really, really interesting given some very different market conditions right now. The average age of what was coming across that auction block, though, kind of helped me understand that. It was 2017. Only 6 years off the basically current model year that's out there. That's effectively a very young RV to be finding at a used like wholesale auction block kind of scenario, which kind of helps me understand why, even though we're in a lower price market cycle right now, the average wholesale used price is up. So used trailers and fifth wheels weirdly holding strong value, but with not a whole lot of old stuff available out there. And that kind of makes me think what dealerships are trying to do is they say, well, we got a whole bunch of stuff that's brand new in stock. What we need in stock to offer a different price point to our buyers is something significantly older. So I think what's happening here is when through show season there was tons and tons of orders, and a lot of show season orders, like if you place an order in March, that unit may still be rolling in right now because of the delay between the time the order is placed and the unit shows up. So I think that if they're getting a trade on something that is older, dealerships are keeping that piece of inventory to be able to offer a lower price point. Some dealerships, if they're taking a trade on something that's a little bit newer, they're not wanting to plug up their dealership with a bunch of, fairly late model, in some cases nearly new RVs, when they already have brand new RVs sitting here that are getting aged. So they're trying to eliminate the competition even within their own dealership location. That makes sense to me that would be the case at least some of the time. But what about the motorized market? Well, look at my hair in the viewfinder here. How do I have male pattern baldness and bad hair days all the time? Anyway, sorry. Looking at the motorized market, a little bit different story. It made a little bit more sense with what I was expecting. The average cost of the motorhome coming across those auction blocks was down a chunk. It was down about $8,000 from the month before, and it was a little bit older. It was like a 2013. Those are kind of the numbers that sort of made sense to me. It's just really interesting to me. The towable RV market really had some different wacky data. But here's what's really, really interesting. Also, I think in both cases, auction volumes were up. They were actually up quite a bit. They were actually up over 20% for towables and like almost 38% for motorized. And again, I think what a lot of that increased auction volume represents are a lot of trade-ins coming into dealerships, but I've been putting my ear to the ground. And again, whether it's pretty or not, I've really dedicated myself to trying to put the most realistic picture of everything out there. And I started investigating and sniffing around how many of these things are repos. Are repossessions starting to creep into the used RV market? And yes. Now, that shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of people. In fact, there have been quite a few people who have been predicting and waiting for this kind of an opportunity. But in certain regions, it's been a little more prevalent. But there are more bank-owned repossessions coming through used auction blocks than we have seen recently. Like kind of an interesting, not massive surge, but an increase in uptick in that activity. Now, a lot of people have been excited about that kind of thing because they think, ooh, a bank repo, I'm going to get this pennies on the dollar. Well, banks aren't the business of losing money either, and it's actually been my experience, like when we've had, we've resold on consignment bank repossessions for the banks before in our inventory, and it's actually been my experience that typically those are the RVs that tend to have some of the higher price tags in the used market because the lender has, the remainder of the lien, the interest on the note and everything that they want to get out of. So I don't know that what we're going to see is this sudden influx of these pennies on the dollar used RVs flooding into the market that people have necessarily been predicting. But the fact is, there is an uptick in repo activity fueling into the used RV market, which is creating an influx in later model, lower use, sometimes literally zero use RVs in the used RV market. And that is actually a little bit reminiscent of when I came into the business in 2009. Bank repossessed, sometimes never used travel trailers and fifth wheels is really what kept my family's dealership above water for the bulk of the 2008-2009 series there. We're not quite in that kind of exact same economic factor yet, but I'm seeing shades of that cycle and trend come back through. But again, it is projected that next year we'll come back into a more positive uptick cycle. Whether that comes to pass or not, I don't know. I'll be around at the time. I'll let you know. But here's the thing with all the data that I'm able to pull, the sources that it comes from, what it doesn't take into account, what it doesn't represent, are things being sold by private sellers and individuals. For that, I would actually ask to get some feedback and some comments from you folks. What have you seen in terms of used RVs being listed for sale on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or RV Trader or websites like that? Things from private owners, not from dealers, not coming from auctions, but actual private owners. Are you seeing, do you feel you see an influx in, used RVs for sale by private sellers or anything like that? I'd be kind of curious. Now, while you're leaving me that, note there, an update on the California generator ban. Again, it's not specific to California, but there's like 17 other states that adopted the same kind of policy, but California's name got associated with it, so there we go. Anyway, if you weren't aware of what's happening here with this generator ban, it generated a lot of scare a couple months ago. Actually, more months ago than I realized. Good Lord, time flies by. I'm getting old and balder, and fatter, and dumber and uglier. But additionally, I am also forgetful. Forgot where I was going with this. Generator ban. If you weren't aware of all this, there is actual legislation in place where I think like 14 or 17 states, they're having a progressive increase in the emissions for small engines. Now, it was really originally geared to things like weed whips and lawn tractors, but the definition of small engines lumped in things like RV generators. And as a result, with the emissions restrictions that were rolling out and putting in place, there was going to be a period in the not terribly far off future where you could still use your existing generators if they didn't meet those compliance things. You'd be grandfathered in, but you couldn't buy a new generator that didn't meet those criteria in those regions. When this happened, initially, Cummins, the largest supplier of RV generators to the RV industry and the new RV market, said, with this timetable, with these restrictions, there's no way that we can do this. It's not possible. We won't be able to sell our stuff in those regions. And that poses a serious problem for RVers. And a lot of people got really spooked by that because it would affect things like onboard gas generators on like Class C, Class A motorhome, stuff like that. Stuff that some people in boondock country, man, rely on, really. Well, then Cummins kind of came back later and said, well, we think we might be able to do this. We think we might be able to come up with something. And recently here, Cummins confirmed. Basically, they went through their gas generator series. They've done some reworks on some things, and without getting into too many gory details, Cummins has said, we are able to produce RVs that are generators for RVs that will be within the emissions compliance regulations, even at their most strictest state once this whole thing rolls out. That's awesome. That is really awesome news. That means people who have existing generators, you should be able to continue using them. And folks who don't, when the time comes, you'll still be able to go camping the way that you wanted. And losing the freedom to camp the way that you want after spending all this time working to earn the money, to spend the money on the RV, which is not inexpensive if we're being real about it, you know, that's something that gets your blood pressure up real awful quick. So it doesn't sound like anyone's going to lose that kind of freedom or opportunity. Now, this is really specifically affecting their gas generator system. They're coming out with inverter-based kind of generators that just run cleaner. They're tuning things in the engines, and they say they're not done. They say they're going to keep working on this, and they're even releasing a whole new like subset of their generators that are going to be working even better with better fuel efficiency. Kind of funny. Necessity really is the mother of invention. But this really only affected like their gas generators specifically. Like, you know, Cummins also has like a whole series of like propane burning RV generators. But the thing is, propane burns so much cleaner. And it as a result, it already fit within the more restrictive emissions guidelines that were going to be rolled out and put in place. And those required absolutely no work whatsoever. Now, a little pro tip for you here. If you're in the RV using it all the time, like a gas or diesel generator, that's, you know, that's fine. But if you're going to use it infrequently, if you're not going to be in it all the time, that fuel breaks down and goes bad, and it gums up carburetors and all kinds of things. Well, propane is a fairly inert gas when it comes to that. It doesn't just really decay real greatly by sitting there. So if you are an RVer who camps only casually, and maybe for like 3 to 6 months you don't use your RV and then you just decide to go out for a weekend, propane is the more reliable option because it hasn't gummed up the motor, it burns clean, and if you haven't run it in 6 months, you go to turn it over, it tends to just fire up. So little pro tip there for you from your Uncle Josh when you're out there shopping and spending that lots of money. Now, speaking of new tech and power solutions, especially for boondock off-grid campers, Lippert has just made a fairly quiet announcement overall, which makes me think it's in the early scheme of things, but basically coming out with a solar awning, which I think is a really cool concept. I've actually kind of wondered why something like this hasn't necessarily been out there before. But what it is here is they partnered up with Renogy, and Renogy's like a big, you know, lithium kind of power solution supplier. They do more than just lithium. But anyway, they do solar panels. They do all kinds of stuff. They're very good at what they do. It would be all the existing Lippert Solera awning hardware, but it would have the Renogy, they call it thin film, I think, solar technology on it, where effectively the awning, when deployed, because that's obviously the thing, the awning's got to be out for this to work, but the awning could be like a 300-watt solar panel built right onto your RV. That's very interesting and very cool to me. Now, 300 watts is nothing to sneeze at. It's not the kind of solar that can produce the sort of power that could offset a air conditioner from running by any stretch of the imagination. But for a lot of these smaller 2-door 12-volt refrigerators, a lot of people consider around 200 watts enough to offset that. Well, 300's, you know, starting to really do the job. Obviously, that would scale down as you get into smaller awning spaces, certainly. Now, the thing is, this is all really new. Even my contacts, I haven't been able to get any kind of insights as to when this is going to really be available, on what brands it might be available, anything like that. Of course, in future video releases, I'll get you that information as soon as I can, assuming it does catch on, which kind of leads me to the question. Is the concept of a solar panel awning something you'd be interested in? I'll tell you why I think it's exciting is, one, just more options, more solutions, more power, just leaves us with more freedoms and abilities to camp the way that we please. The other thing is we are potentially, in some cases, eliminating additional mounts into the roof, into the, you know, when you screw those solar panels down, you're puncturing the roof membrane. You have to seal that. You're creating potentially additional leak points. Well, the more we can get away from that, the happier I am. But that's my 2 cents. I'd kind of like to hear from you. Do you like the idea of your awning turning into a solar panel, or does that just not do anything for you? Now, this next thing maybe has some major ramifications. So, we might be on the cusp. There might be the initial seeds being sown right now of a major change in RV warranties and, by extension, general industry quality. Now, here's what I'm getting at. Most RVs have a 1-year warranty. It's very rare for an RV to actually have more than a 1-year warranty. Jayco's one of the few widespread examples of having like 2 years of coverage. Now, there's a lot of RVs that have like a big 3 with the word warranty on it, but that's typically structural coverage. And generally speaking, not 100% of the time, but generally speaking, those are things that do not fail and go wrong. Well, nuCamp might be looking to shake that up. If you're not familiar with nuCamp, they're kind of a niche little builder of some things like some truck campers, but more specifically, people tend to know them from their teardrop campers like Tabs, you might have heard of. They are, well, they're low volume, but generally regarded as a well-built rig. They're certainly not inexpensive for no bigger of an RV than you're getting, but the build quality is there, typically, by comparison. Well, they are offering what they're basically calling their ultimate warranty protection plan. And what it is it's up to a 7-year warranty plan that you can, technically an extended service contract because you're buying it on top of, you're paying extra money for it, but a 7-year extended service protection plan that basically covers anything that's not wear and tear. So like your big appliances, your water system, that stuff could be covered for a vastly longer time than has ever been done from a factory, in the mainstream RV world. The thing is, it ain't cheap. So it naturally begs the question, how much we talking here, Jack? Well, it varies. It varies based on the size and the features and the amenities of the specific nuCamp model that you're looking at. The smaller models cost less, the bigger models cost more. Kind of makes sense. So I started kind of looking into the limitations here. Now it doesn't include like wear and tear things like brake pads or rotors or drums or any of that sort of stuff. That's pretty normal in like automotive warranties too. Wear and tear items like tires are not part of, that kind of protection plan. Also, there's no sort of like worry about third party back and forth. So like if you go to an RV dealership and they say, you can get a 5-year warranty. First of all, it's not a warranty because you're paying extra for it. Technically, that's an extended service contract, but it's not actually the dealership typically providing that. It's a third-party company that the dealership is selling that service plan for. Well, the trick there is like if something goes wrong that should be covered under that plan, you have to take it to the dealership who has to diagnose it and still get that third-party company to approve stuff. With this, it's actually, it's not third party at all. It's all being fulfilled direct through nuCamp. So there's far less of this finger pointing, he said, she said nonsense. And that excites me. You can tell I kind of set my jaw a little bit right there. I've seen way too much of that crap through my career. And I swear sometimes it's like these people, their job is to find ways to not pay to fix customers' things when they definitely should. Sorry, I'm getting worked up over here with my bad stupid hair day cowlick face. The other thing that I kind of noticed on this is usually in the RV industry, like if you buy that RV behind me right there and 2 months from now you decide you don't want it and you resell it or whatever, warranty's done, son. Warranties rarely transfer in the RV industry. This would be fully transferable at least to the second owner. I didn't dig too much further than that, and that is a massive resale value factor. When you are looking at vehicles, hearing the phrase balance of factory warranty, that's just regular stock and trade. That almost doesn't exist in the RV industry, and that could cause a just huge way to maintain stronger resale and trade value on RVs that your first-time RV owner typically owns an RV for 2.5 years or less. To be able to have a stronger value built into that and not have to roll over a bunch of inequity onto your next RV, I like that prospect. But it kind of, a lot of people ask the question, why don't RVs have longer warranties then? I've often said that the RV industry is about 20 years behind the auto industry, and I think in terms of warranty and service aspects, if we were only 20 years behind, that would be really awesome. I love this industry, I love the people, I love the lifestyle, but there are undoubtedly a couple really black eyes that are affecting this business that they need to get addressed, but I can't fix them anyway. Well, it really kind of reminds me of, if you're familiar with the history of automotive warranties, it wasn't in the scheme of things all that long ago. There's people alive now that remember when Fords had their warranty was like 90 days on material and 30 days on labor, and that was the standard automotive warranty until like the 1950s. And then in the 1950s, some foreign car makers started penetrating the United States that started having some other things. Then like Ford stepped up and they had like one of the first like 1 year, 12,000 mile warranties. And then I think, who was it? Lincoln or somebody after that started doing like 2 year, 24,000 miles. And then warranties started getting longer. But along with that, vehicle prices started going up significantly by comparison for a few reasons. First of all, they had to build into the cost. These warranties don't come free. Just like that new camp, how it's, you're paying extra money for it. When it's built into the price tag, it's called a warranty. When you pay for it later, it's called a service contract. But either way, it does not come free. You're paying for peace of mind, quite literally in a sense, and you're paying for assurances and guarantees. The cost of, they figure, well, if we offer this longer warranty, we're going to expect this many dollars worth of problems per unit, and we have to build that in, and some will have a little more, some will have a little less, but here's the statistical average. Well, along with that, they had to start building better cars that could stand up to the longer and longer warranties. And that's one of the reasons, if you look at the quality service records of RVs versus cars today, it's not even a comparison. Like, I'm not even going to try to act like there's even remotely a parallel. Let's be real about it. I wish that I'm super disappointed about every word that just came out of my mouth. But that's the facts. That's just the reality of it. RVs could have longer warranties. The way that a lot of stuff is built would greatly need to change, and that would increase the base cost of RVs significantly, plus the cost of the extra warranty coverage. And the consumer marketplace, I don't know that they've necessarily yet demonstrated that they're willing to pay for that additional cost, because that is really the thing. If you ask somebody, would you rather have a better built RV with a longer warranty, they're going to go, well, yeah, stupid. What kind of question is that? But if you say, okay, would you be willing to pay this many thousands of dollars more to accomplish that? They start going, oh, well, I don't know. And that's really been the hang-up. So as a result, too many times in today's RV market, it feels like it's a race to the bottom. And again, I'm not proud of what I just said, but being real about it, I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful that other manufacturers kind of keep an eye on what New Camp is doing here. That we, like, maybe even if it was RV companies who have 1 year offer an extra second year. What's funny is a lot of Forest Rivers used to offer that, and nobody took advantage of it, so they quit doing it. But that was then, this is now. I'd really like to see more manufacturers kind of start to take part in this, because if we start getting more buyers interested in longer warranties and peace of mind, then we will start getting manufacturers building something that is made to hold up to those longer terms. Now, that does mean the base cost of these things is going to go up. So I guess I would ask you, do you think it's worth spending some extra money on something that gives you a little bit more of a problem-free philosophy, Hakuna Matata? You think your job sucks? Sounds like you should try being a park ranger. So recently there was a survey done, for a lot of different places, but bestplacestowwork.org did these surveys of a bunch of different things. And in terms of like governmental agencies and whatnot, the National Park Service ranked in the low 15% of places that are considered great to work. And this is kind of concerning to me. I think you're getting an awesome view of our water drainage pond back here, by the way. Although there's actually fish in it now. I think one of the good old boys here stocked it so they could do some fishing on their break, but I sure wouldn't eat out of there. Neither here nor there, sorry. There was this big study put out on, like, are you happy with the job, this, that, and the other thing? And there was just overwhelming answers from, like, park rangers, which was once considered like a dream job, that it's not really awesome that the hours are really rough, a lot of mandatory overtime, understaffing issues, lack of money for infrastructure, facilities maintenance and upkeep, and just like a really poor work-life balance. Like it was really depressing to go through and read this, but these are the people that help oversee and maintain, you know, the guests and the facilities at things like our national parks. That, you know, there's 136% more people visiting national parks now than even just a couple years ago. It's more than doubled. But in the meantime, since like 19 or 16 or something like that, in 2016 there was like 16,000 park rangers. And when 136% more people are visiting these parks, and there's now 25% fewer park rangers, we're down to about 12,000 park rangers nationally, and they're sitting on a roughly delayed, deferred maintenance and upkeep schedule that totals about $22 billion that's not happening. You can understand why the morale's a little bit low in that department. I don't know what the solution there necessarily is. Like we need to increase spending to increase staffing to be able to maintain these facilities, because otherwise the national parks a lot of people really look forward to going, like Yellowstone, we might start losing some of these opportunities. So I guess if you see some kind of opportunity like you know, a spending bill to increase funding for these things or something like that, consider taking a look at it, because otherwise we may start losing some of those places. Not in the near future, but eventually it all catches up. Now, a couple quick notes in terms of manufacturing news. Alliance RV. It's like every time I say their name, it's almost always associated with something really cool. They recently had their 4th annual rally, and while they were there, they raised about $17,000 for the local Boys and Girls Club in Elkhart County. I think that's just absolutely awesome, the way that they're working to help give back to their local community. To me, that's just very cool. A little bit of a bummer over at KZRV. We lost the president and CEO of KZRV. He unfortunately left us a little bit early and ahead of his time, and it's just always sad when you see something like that go. What kind of hit me about the story was he started working for his father's dealership, kind of like I did, and then eventually became like a GM at Keystone, then did some work at Dutchman, and then until eventually he became, you know, the tallest hog at the trough over at KZRV. So it's just always sad when you see someone like that who just had so many years and so much history in the business leave us. Finally, Winnebago. Winnebago is really starting to recognize there's a need for a lower price point product, and they're doing a couple things to fulfill this. Now, I went to Winnebago's facilities not too long ago, and I recorded a couple RVs, and I went in the wrong building once, and I stumbled into their first prototype of something I'm not allowed to talk about yet. But when I am, I will have video for you of it. I'll say it that way. They're working on opening up new lower price points, and they're working on doing that a couple ways, but the thing that I stumbled into, I'm very excited about, and it's proof that the RV industry in certain ways can do better than they have, and certain manufacturers are working toward that. Winnebago has something coming out that is going to look like a fully decked out laminated trailer on the inside, but from what I saw, has price points rivaling or lower than something like a Forest River Grey Wolf. Now, I'm literally not allowed to say anything more than that at this time. I'll just sort of let you form your own ideas from there. And one last little thing that I stumbled into I thought was interesting. RV rentals are really on the rise. So Outdoorsy is a website that helps specialize in like you know, rental setups and things like that. They have just reported that their rental bookings are at an all-time high right now, and I kind of thought about that, and I thought that that sort of makes sense. Renting an RV for a weekend is certainly less than buying an RV and paying monthly installments for a year. Although I will say, typically RV rentals do run you more than they think they'll run you more than they think they're going to. Yep, nailed it, first try, and. But it's also, a lot of people, like, they'll own an RV, and when they're not using it, they tend to rent their RV out a little bit, but rental RVs are up, and I started looking a little further, like, what could be fueling this? Certainly, the price of new RVs has pushed some people away from saying, well, you know, for a little bit less, I could have just bought one. If it's going to run that much, I'll just rent one and spend a little bit once or twice a year. But I started looking at road trip costs and things like that. So from 2 years ago, the average cost of a road trip has gone up about 11%. You know, a weekend road trip has increased about $100 a trip, something like that. But since just last year, hotel rates have increased 54% per night. And that's something as a person who travels and bounces different hotels to record our different stores every now and then, that's certainly something I've run into recently here and I've noticed. So I think that RV rentals are really kind of working out as a good, modest budget, reasonable budget weekend trip or week-long trip kind of solution for some folks. And I'd be kind of curious, like, have you ever rented your RV out? Have you considered have you rented an RV? What was the experience? Whatever the case, leave me a little bit of feedback. I'd just kind of be curious to know, because I don't really get a lot of insight into that side of the RV world. Oops. I had more, but that I gotta wrap this up. That's my wife on the phone saying, "Where are you? You're normally home like a half hour ago. Aren't you guys closed?" Putting in a little extra time getting this industry update in, because I've been busy lately putting together a bunch of videos for you guys. So I gotta get going. If you appreciate the information we brought for you today, so you can see everybody leaving right now. If you appreciate the information that we've brought for you, we've literally shared our inside trade data with you today. You want to talk about peeling back the curtain? We laid it on the table and said, here you go. Everybody can take a look. If you appreciate what we're doing for you, telling you the good, the bad, with the ugly, with everything in between, please hit that subscribe button, like our video, drop us a couple comments, and you know, if you found value in this, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the share button, throw it in your favorite social media groups, something like that. Let's help spread the message. Let's just help everybody be a little bit more educated about what's going on in the wide world of RVing here. So when you're ready, we're ready. And until next time, take care, stay safe, have fun, and best wishes from Bishes, everybody. That didn't rhyme, did it?